Ethan, Dylan's project is still short $50 million. Can you? On the other end of the line, my wife Sophia's voice carried the same entitled petulance as always. Just like in my previous life, the countless times she pleaded with me for that man. I looked out the window. My reflection in the glass showed my young face, utterly calm and untroubled. In my last life, I gave everything. I gave her all the liquid assets of my company just to win her smile. In the end, her first love, Dylan, absconded with the money. She was utterly despondent and drove the red Ferrari I had given her off the bridge spanning the river. And I, trying to save her, died in the cold river water. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 10 minutes before she made that call. The phone was still at my ear. I could even hear the faint sound of wind and Dylan's soft laugh from her side. "Ethan, are you listening?" I smiled. "Sophia," I said calmly, cutting her off. "Let's get a divorce." There was a second of dead silence on the other end of the line. Immediately, Sophia's sharp voice pierced my eardrum. "Ethan, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? Do you even know what you're saying? Just because I mentioned Dylan once." Her voice was full of incredulous anger, as if I had made the most absurdly outrageous demand. I didn't argue with her. There was no point. In my last life, I argued with her for 10 years, from the first day we married until the day we both died. I thought love could melt everything, could make her forget that white moonlight who existed only in the memories of her youth. As it turned out, I was wrong. Way off. Some people's hearts cannot be warmed. I'm very clear-headed, Sophia. Meet me at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring your household registration booklet and your ID card. After I finished speaking, I hung up the phone. Listening to the busy signal coming from the phone, I exhaled a long breath. The nightmare that had haunted 2 lifetimes seemed, at this moment, to finally show a crack. The phone began ringing wildly again. It was Sophia. I hung up repeatedly, and she called back with equal persistence. Finally, I shut my phone off. The world became quiet. I stood up and walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window. This was the top-tier Riverview flat in the center of Jing City, 360 square meters, the wedding home I had designed with my own hands. Down below is the most dazzling night view in the city. In my last life, I thought that having all of this meant I had her. Now it seems it was nothing but my one-sided joke. I looked around this luxurious yet cold home. The wedding photo hanging on the wall showed Sophia smiling brightly and beautifully, while I was merely a slightly stiff foil by her side. I walked over and took that huge picture down from the wall. With a crack, the glass cover shattered. I expressionlessly threw it into the trash can. After finishing all that, I walked into the study and turned on the computer. In my previous life, I poured all my energy into building the business empire for Sophia. Every project I took on, every investment I made, was to give her a better life, to make sure that so-called artist first love of hers couldn't hold his head up in front of her. I succeeded. I became the youngest billionaire in this city. But because of that, I neglected too many potential business opportunities. I perfectly missed all the real trends that could stir up waves in the future. And now I'm back, carrying memories of the next 10 years. Sophia? Dylan? It was merely the appetizer for my rebooted life. The next morning at 8:50, I arrived at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau on time. The sunlight was a bit blinding. A fiery red Maserati braked sharply and stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Sophia's face, exquisitely made up yet unable to hide her anger. She wore sunglasses, her red lips pressed tight. "Ethan, I'll give you one last chance. Take back what you said yesterday, and I can pretend nothing happened." Her tone was haughty, as if she were doing a favor. I opened the car door and sat in the passenger seat. "Did you bring the household registration book?" I asked. Sophia's chest heaved violently. She suddenly tore off her sunglasses. Her beautiful eyes were full of rage and humiliation. "To divorce me? You even gave up the company? The board held an emergency meeting all night last night because you were inexplicably absent. Do you know what kind of impact that caused?" I smiled and said nothing. "The company? The largest shareholder of that company is Sophia's father, George Taylor. I'm nothing more than a senior employee, a tool who makes money for their Taylor family. In my last life, I poured my heart and soul into it. And in the end, all I received were their family's cold glances and the words, "Sophia did everything she could." "Get out of the car," I said calmly. "Ethan," I said, "get out of the car." My voice turned cold. "If you don't want to leave, that's fine. I'll go straight to legal action. When that happens, some rather unseemly things might be brought to light, and I don't think Mr. George would want to see that." I was referring to Dylan. Over the years, I knew full well how much Sophia had been secretly and openly supporting him with the company's money. It's just that in my previous life, I was blinded by greed and chose to turn a blind eye. Sophia's face instantly went deathly pale. She glared at me as if she were meeting me for the first time. You've changed." I ignored her, got out of the car, and walked straight to the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Behind me came the rapid click of high heels on the ground. Inside the hall, the process was unbelievably fast. No arguments, no pulling. When the two dark red divorce certificates were handed back to us, Sophia's gaze was still a little dazed. She seemed unable to believe that the man who had loved her for 10 years and treated her like a queen could really so decisively and cleanly give her up. After we left the Civil Affairs office, she stopped me. "Ethan, are you seeing someone else?" This was the only reason she could think of. I looked at her and suddenly felt a bit ridiculous. "Yes," I nodded. Sophia's body trembled, her face going even paler. "Who is it?" she asked through gritted teeth. "Someone who is more sensible than you, more considerate than you, and who loves me more than you do." I made it up on the spot, but seeing how devastated she was, I felt no pleasure in revenge, only an endless exhaustion. "You're leaving with nothing. How do you plan to get by?" Sophia drew a deep breath, as if trying to reclaim her sense of superiority from another angle. "I heard you transferred all the properties and cars under your name to mine. Ethan, don't regret this. Without me, you're nobody." I looked at her as if she were a stranger. "Are you finished?" Sophia was taken aback. I took a bank card out of my pocket and handed it to her. "What is this?" she frowned. "You gave it to me. When did I ever?" "Last life," I interrupted her. "You threw this card in my face to raise money for Dylan, told me there's $50 million on it as my breakup settlement, and told me to get as far away as possible." Sophia's pupils suddenly constricted. "What nonsense are you talking about?" I ignored her shock and went on speaking as if nothing had happened. "I didn't take it at the time. I felt it was an insult to me. But now that I think about it, I was being overly precious. We're husband and wife. You owe me some compensation." I pushed the card into her hand. "The pin is your birthday. There's no money in it. But I believe that to quickly get rid of me, your ex-husband, and to ensure your beloved Dylan can smoothly secure the investment, Miss Taylor shouldn't mind putting in $50 million. After all, that's some chump change to you, isn't it?" Having said that, I turned and walked away without a trace of hesitation. Behind me, Sophia stood frozen in place, the bank card in her hand feeling as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. She watched my resolute back, the anger and incomprehension in her eyes gradually being replaced by a vague panic. She suddenly realized that the man she thought she held firmly in her palm seemed really about to be lost. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I took a taxi to the largest antique market in Jing City. In my previous life, to curry favor with Sophia, I had studied antiques and calligraphy quite extensively. I know that today, in a small shop at the antique market, a foreign classical masterpiece called The Gentleman by the Lake will be sold as a forgery, priced at $50,000. In 3 months from now, this painting will fetch an astronomical $300 million at an auction in Port City. This will be my first pot of gold. Walking into the antique market, the air was filled with a mix of old wood and the scent of ink. I easily found the little shop called Shiva. The owner was a man in his 50s, wearing reading glasses, lazily reclining in a rocking chair and listening to storytelling. When he saw me come in, he only lifted his eyelids. "Look around," Take whatever you like. I nodded and immediately fixed my gaze on the pile of dust-covered scrolls in the corner. The elegant scholar by the lake was among them. I didn't pick it up right away. Instead, I strolled leisurely around the shop. I picked up a blue and white porcelain vase to look at it, then put it down. I picked up a jade pendant and felt it, then shook my head. It took a full 10 minutes before I pretended to casually walk to that corner. I squatted down and rummaged through a pile of paintings. "Boss, how much are these paintings?" The boss didn't open his eyes. "Copies, worthless. Pick whatever you want, 50,000 USD per piece. If you buy them all, I'll give you a 20% discount." I laughed inwardly. I pulled out The Painting Gentleman by the Lakeside and unfolded it for a glance. The brushwork and seals on the painting were exactly as I remembered. "Let be this one." I rolled up the painting and handed it to the boss. The boss finally sat up straight, took the painting, and glanced at it. "Young man, you have a good eye. This imitation is actually somewhat interesting. But I have to warn you, it's just a trinket. Find a buy and hang up, but don't try to pass it off as the real thing and resell it. You'll lose your shirt." I smiled. "It's nothing. I was just looking because I liked it." I took out my phone, ready to scan the code to pay. At that moment, my phone vibrated. It was a bank SMS. "Your savings account ending in XXXX was credited with $50 million on 20/XX at XX. XX. Current balance, $50 million. Sophia." She really hit me. The corner of my mouth lifted slightly. It seems she is even more eager to get rid of me than I imagined. Fine. That saved me a lot of trouble. "Boss, sweep here, right?" I paid, took the painting, and turned to leave. Just as I stepped out the shop door, a clear female voice called after me. "Ethan." I turned around and saw a woman in a professional suit with a capable, efficient air. Olivia, Sophia's close friend and the legal director at her company. Someone who, in my previous life, was the only person who had spoken a few fair words for me. "Ms. Martinez." I nodded. Olivia hurried up to me, a trace of anxiety and confusion on her face. "I just called Sophia." She said, "You two are divorced." Why? What on earth happened?" Olivia frowned tightly. "Is it because of Dylan?" "Did Sophia?" "I cut her off. It's all in the past." Olivia looked at my calm face, words dying on her lips. "She's not like Sophia. She was very clever and very perceptive. She could sense that something indescribable had changed in me." "So what are your plans next?" She changed the subject. "I heard you gave all your assets to Sophia." "Start over." I was concise. Olivia's gaze fell on the scroll in my hand. "Ew, have you started dabbling in antiques?" "Just playing around." Olivia was silent for a moment, then took a business card out of her bag and handed it to me. "Ethan, I know you're very capable. If you need a job or have any legal issues, you can come to me anytime. I'll try to persuade Sophia again." I took the business card, looking at her sincere eyes, feeling a stir in my heart. In my previous life, Olivia was alienated by Sophia for speaking up for me, and in the end was even forced to resign from the company. This time, I don't want to drag her down anymore. "Thank you." I put away the business card. "But there's no need. Between her and me, it's already over. As for work, I'm not considering it for the time being." Olivia wanted to say more, but seeing my distant attitude, she ultimately sighed. "All right, then take care of yourself. If you run into trouble, don't forget you still have me as a friend." Friend. That word left me feeling a little dazed. In my previous life, I had almost no friends. All my time and energy were given to Sophia and her family. Okay, I nodded. After saying goodbye to Olivia, I didn't go home. That so-called home no longer had a place for me. I checked into a 5-star hotel, then immediately contacted the largest auction house in Port City. When the call connected, I gave the name of the star auctioneer from my previous life without hesitation. "I'm looking for Miss Anna Wilson. I have a foreign classical painting, Gentleman by the Lake, and I'd like her to appraise it." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. "Sir, may I ask your name?" "How did you get Miss Anna's private contact information?" "Tell her my surname is Johnson. She will see me." I hung up the phone and lay on the soft bed, staring at the ceiling. $50 million in startup capital. A genuine piece worth $300 million. Everything is proceeding exactly according to my plan. Sophia, Dylan, your game is only just beginning, but I no longer wish to play along. I only want to take back everything that belongs to me, and then watch how your tall towers crumble bit by bit. 3 days later, Harbor City. In the presidential suite of the Peninsula Hotel, I met Anna. She was a woman of about 40, still graceful, dressed in a well-tailored Chanel suit, her eyes sharp and shrewd. "Mr. Johnson, I've long admired you." She reached out her hand first, wearing a professional smile. I shook her hand. "Ms. Wilson, you're too kind." In my previous life, I dealt with her several times and knew well this woman's tactics and abilities. She is the queen of the auction world in Harbor City. Countless masterpieces that fetch sky-high prices have passed through her hands. I heard Mr. Johnson has an original foreign classical painting, and I got straight to the point. I nodded, placed the scroll I had brought on the table, and slowly unrolled it. Anna's expression instantly turned serious. She slipped on white gloves, took out a magnifying glass, and began to examine the painting inch by inch from the upper right corner. Time passed second by second. The only sound left in the room was the faint whir of the air conditioner. Only after a full half hour did Anna straighten up, take off her glasses, and let out a long sigh. Her face showed an excitement and thrill she could hardly conceal. "Mr. Johnson, where did you get this painting?" "A friend acquired it," I said nonchalantly. Anna's gaze fixed on me, as if trying to read something from my face. "Mr. Johnson, pardon my frankness, but this lakeside gentleman is an original. And besides, it's a rare masterpiece by a foreign classical painting master from his late years, preserved so well. It's practically a miracle. Its value is incalculable." I smiled. "Ms. Wilson, the reason I brought you here is that I want it to become accessible." Anna immediately understood what I meant. "Does Mr. Johnson want to entrust our auction house to hold the auction?" "That's right. Our biggest autumn auction is in 3 months. If Mr. Johnson is willing, we can make this painting the finale piece. I guarantee we will use all our resources to promote and build momentum for it, and we will definitely achieve a price that satisfies you. I estimate the final price will be at least $200 million US. Excitement sparkled in Anna's eyes. This was not just a huge deal. It was an event worthy of being recorded in the history of auctions. "I have only one request," I said. "Please go ahead, Mr. Johnson. Before the auction, I need an advance payment." Anna paused for a moment, then understood. This is a common practice in the industry. For sellers who urgently need money, the auction house can pay a portion of the funds in advance. "How much do you need?" $100 million. I announced a figure. Anna's brows furrowed slightly. $100 million is not a small amount. Although the painting's value far exceeds this, the auction has not yet taken place, so there's a certain risk. "Mr. Johnson, this amount is a bit." I cut her off. "Ms. Wilson, I trust your professional judgment. You know the value of this painting better than I do. $100 million is very important to me. To your auction house, it's merely locking in a showpiece in advance. This deal will net you steady, risk-free profits." My tone was calm, yet carried an unquestionable confidence. Anna looked at me and was silent for a moment. She was evaluate the value of this painting, and also assess my own background. In the end, she nodded. "Okay, Mr. Johnson's straightforwardness, I appreciate it very much. The $100 million will be transferred to your account within 3 days. Pleasure doing business. Pleasure doing business." After seeing Anna off, I stood by the hotel's floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the entire night view of Victoria Harbor. The lights glittered like a river of stars. A cash flow of $100 million, plus the $50 million Sophia gave. Enough to leverage even greater capital. In my last life, I missed the golden decade of overseas internet development. And now it is 2010, an age where gold is everywhere. An era in which, with enough capital and forward-looking vision, one can create miracles. I took out my phone and dialed a long seal number. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. Hello? Who is this? A slightly hoarse and tired voice came through. Marcus, it's me, Ethan. Silence on the other end of the line. Marcus Lee, my college classmate and once my best brother. He was a tech genius who dove into mobile internet startups after graduation. In my previous life, I dismissed his project because I was busy trying to please Sophia. As a result, his company was acquired by a giant 3 years later for $3 billion, skyrocketing him to legendary status. When I found him, he was in the toughest period of his startup. The funding had dried up, and he was on the brink of bankruptcy. Ethan, Marcus's voice carried a hint of uncertainty. Ew, why are you calling me? I heard you've been having some trouble lately. I said directly. Marcus gave a bitter laugh. Trouble is an understatement. It's practically a dead end. I heard you need an investment? Yes, but unfortunately, no one wants to touch my little rundown company. Marcus's tone was full of melancholy. I'll invest. What? Marcus thought he had misheard. I say, I'm investing in you. How much do you need? Marcus was silent for a full half-minute, then asked in a trembling voice, Ethan, you're not joking, are you? Do I sound like I'm joking? But aren't you managing your father-in-law's company? I heard that you. I divorced him, I said calmly. Marcus was stunned again. I now have $100 million in cash. Is that enough? From the other end of the line came the sound of Marcus drawing a sharp breath. $100 million. For his current small team of only 7 or 8 people, it was simply an astronomical sum. Enough. That's more than enough. Marcus's voice sharpened with excitement. Ethan, you really believe me? I believe my judgment. And I believe you too. Those words made Marcus, a man in his 30s standing 7 feet tall on the other end of the phone, instantly well up with tears. Ethan, thank you. Don't say useless things. I smiled. Send me your company's address. I'll bring a lawyer and a team over tomorrow. I want 50% of your company. Don't talk about 50%. I'll give you 70%. Marcus said without hesitation. Then 51%. I need absolute controlling interest. After hanging up, I looked out at the night view and felt an unprecedented sense of ease. Marcus's company is called Wei Xing. In my last life, it ultimately became one of the dominant powers in the foreign social sphere. And in this life, it will become the sharpest sword in my hand. Sophia, Dylan, you think taking my company and giving me $50 million is an insult and the end of me? You are mistaken. That was only the first gift I gave you. The real show is yet to come. The next day, I flew back to the mainland. At the airport, I met Marcus, who had come to pick me up. He looked much more haggard than I remembered. Heavy dark circles under his eyes, hair slightly disheveled. But those eyes were astonishingly bright. Seeing me, he rushed over in a single stride and gave me a bear hug. Ethan, you finally came. I patted his back. Let's go. I'll come see your company. Marcus's company was in a rundown tech park. The office wasn't big, only a little over 100 square meters, crammed with 7 or 8 young people, each sporting a pair of panda eyes and looking listless. When they saw Marcus bring me in, everyone cast curious glances. Let me introduce you all. This is Ethan, our company's new investor and my good brother. Marcus announced excitedly. A sparse smattering of applause sounded through the office. It was obvious everyone still regarded this suddenly appeared investor with suspicion. I paid it no mind. I walked to the center of the office and glanced around. Starting today, I'm investing $100 million in this company. The moment I finished speaking, the entire office fell completely silent. Everyone gaped, looking at me in disbelief. $100 million? Did they hear wrong? Mr. Johnson, did you say $100 million? A young man wearing black-rimmed glasses stammered. That's right. I nodded. 30% of this money will be used to improve the office environment and move to the best office building downtown. 30% will be used to give bonuses to all employees, doubling their salaries. The remaining 40% will be entirely invested in product development and marketing. My words exploded like successive heavy bombs in the small office. After a brief silence, came cheers like a roaring tide. Holy shit. Salary doubled. We're moving to the CBD. The boss is awesome. Mr. Johnson is awesome. The employees who had been listless just moments ago suddenly looked like they'd been injected with adrenaline, faces flushed with excitement. Marcus also looked at me excitedly, his eyes reddening. Ethan, don't get emotional yet. I patted his shoulder. The money wasn't given away for nothing. I want you to launch version 2.0 of Weishuan within a month. I want it to have the cleanest interface, the smoothest operation, and a brand new feature, Moments. Moments. Marcus's eyes suddenly lit up. He was a tech fanatic and immediately recognized the enormous potential of this feature. This idea is brilliant. Yes. Why didn't we think of this before? A platform where people can share life updates. This is a social feature tailor-made for mobile. I smiled. Of course, it was a brilliant idea. Only that this brilliance was born in another timeline. I trust you understand the technical implementation better than I do. I only care about the results. In 1 month, I want to see Weishuan users surpass 1 million. At the time, that goal seemed almost impossible to achieve. But Marcus nodded without hesitation. No problem. With your $100 million, never mind a million. I'm confident about 10 million. In his eyes, the flame called dream was rekindled. For the next month, I was practically living at the company. I used the $50 million I brought with me to rent an entire floor of office space in the city center as quickly as possible. Then, with the remaining money, I poached a group of top technical talents and operations experts from major internet companies. A new team, a new environment, ample funding. Micromessage was like a supercar with a full tank of gas, beginning to accelerate crazily. As for me, I used that time to quietly set up another plan. I put up a $100 million advance payment and began accumulating large amounts of shares of a company called Rising Sun Realty on the secondary market. In my previous life, this company's stock plunged to rock bottom and it teetered on the brink of delisting due to cash flow problems. Everyone thought it was finished. Only I knew that 3 months later, the government would announce a major urban development plan, and the patch of godforsaken land in Rising Sun Realty's hands would become the center of the new district. Its stock price would surge 30-fold within just 1 month. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I put all my funds on the line. It was a high-stakes gamble. If I win the bet, I will soar to the skies. If I lose the bet, I will have nothing. But I know I will not lose. Because I returned with the answer key for the exam. 1 month later, WeChat 2.0 version officially launched. A clean interface, smooth experience, and the epic-making moments feature instantly detonated the entire market. Coupled with our overwhelming advertising campaign, the number of users began to grow explosively. 100,000, 500,000, 1 million. In just 20 days, we achieved that seemingly impossible goal. At the celebration banquet, everyone got drunk. Marcus held me, crying like a child. Ethan, I finally did it. I smiled and patted his back, but my mind was on something else. By my reckoning, it should be Sophia and Dylan's big day soon. Sure enough, the next day, a piece of news exploded across the city's financial circles. Genius designer Dylan joins forces with Taylor Group, investing $1 billion to create the top-tier art and commercial complex Fuguan. In the news photo, Sophia wore a couture gown, linked arm in arm with the suit-clad Dylan, smiling radiantly and happily. They stood at the project's groundbreaking ceremony, bathed in countless flashes of light. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. All the media were praising this immortal couple. My phone rang. It's an unfamiliar number. I picked up. Ethan, did you see that? It's Sophia. There's a trace of showiness and vengeful pleasure in her voice. This is the business Dylan and I built. And you? I heard after your divorce, you went to some nearly bankrupt little company. Ethan, I told you long ago, without me you are nothing. Now, do you regret it? I listened to her words and could only laugh. Sophia, have you ever thought, what if you hadn't given me that $50 million? Silence on the other end of the line. If that $50 million were still in your hands, wouldn't you be able to bow to your father one time less? If that $50 million were still in your hands, wouldn't Dylan have avoided signing that compound interest betting agreement to cover the funding shortfall? Every sentence I spoke was like a dagger, piercing precisely into her heart. Ew. How did you find out about the wager agreement? Sophia's voice instantly turned terrified. I don't just know about the wager agreement. I also know that your so-called top-tier commercial complex was built on land with feng shui problems. Within 3 months, there will inevitably be an accident. When the time comes, don't talk about making money. If your Taylor family isn't ruined, I'll eat my hat. You're lying. Sophia screamed. You're jealous. It's a curse. Believe it or not, it's up to you. I couldn't be bothered to argue with her anymore, so I hung up. I stared out the window as the sky darkened. Sophia, your good days are over, and mine are only just beginning. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another month had gone by. The number of users on Weishuan had already surpassed 5 million, and it was still growing at an astonishing pace. The phones at the reception desk were practically being blown up by calls from major investment firms. They brandished checks, eager to grab a piece of the pie. But I refused them all. The current Weishuan was still far from its peak value. Meanwhile, Rising Sun Realty's stock price remained stuck at a low level, lifeless and stagnant. Inside the company, people were anxious and rumors of bankruptcy were rampant. But I wasn't worried at all. Just before a storm, everything is always exceptionally calm. That afternoon, I was in the office reading documents when Olivia suddenly came in. She was thinner than the last time I saw her, and her expression looked a bit haggard. Is it convenient to talk? She stood in the doorway, somewhat hesitant. I nodded, motioning her to come in. Would you like something to drink? No need. Olivia sat opposite me and got straight to the point. Ethan, did you tamper with Sophia's project? I'm a little surprised. Why do you say that? I've looked into it. Olivia's gaze was sharp. The parcel for the Fu Wong project suddenly had several strong competitors emerge before the auction, artificially driving the price up by 30%. And their main contractor was exposed for a major safety scandal the day before signing, forcing the project to replace the team at the last minute and delaying the schedule by a month. It's all too coincidental. It was such a coincidence, as if someone had carefully plotted it behind the scenes. I looked at her and had to admire this woman's keenness. That's right, all that was done by me. I only spread some ambiguous rumors, had a few friends' companies raise the price a bit, and anonymously reported some dirt on that contractor. I didn't expect it would have such a good effect. Ms. Martinez, do you think I have that much power? I smiled faintly, saying nothing for certain. Olivia stared at me intently. Maybe the old you didn't, but I can't see through you now. She paused, her tone softening. Ethan, I know Sophia hurt you, but after all, she's my best friend. Taylor Group is also the result of her hard work. If the project really ran into trouble, she would collapse. Can't you just leave her alone? I looked at her, my expression calm. Olivia, did you ever think that when she and her family forced me out empty-handed back then, who was there to leave me alone? When she threw $50 million in my face and told me to get lost, did she ever think of sparing me? When she and Dylan paraded their love in front of the media and made a joke of me, did she ever think of sparing me? My voice wasn't loud, but every word struck Olivia like a hammer. Olivia went pale. She had nothing to say, because what I say is all the truth. I didn't take the initiative to harm her. I stood up and walked to the window. I only took back some things that should have belonged to me. As for what will happen to her project, that's between her and the man she chose. It has nothing to do with me. My point is made, Ms. Martinez. You may leave. My stance was firm. Olivia watched my back, her eyes complicated. In the end, she still stood up and left quietly. I knew that when she went back, she would definitely tell Sophia what I had said. But what does that matter? Now Sophia was already intoxicated by the grand blueprint Dylan had painted. She wouldn't believe me. She would only think I was jealous, that I was cursing. This was exactly the effect I wanted. I will make her watch with her own eyes at the very moment of her greatest pride, as everything of hers turns to bubbles. After seeing Olivia off, I received a call from Marcus. Ethan, it's done. Done what? Rising Sun Realty. The government just issued an official red-headed document to turn that plot in the east of the city into a new financial center. The internet's exploded. Rising Sun's stock price hit the daily limit up at the opening. I smiled. What was bound to happen has finally come. Don't get excited. This is only the beginning. Let the bullets fly a little longer. In the following half month, Rising Sun Realty's stock price shot up like it had been strapped to a rocket. 10 consecutive daily limit ups. 20 consecutive daily limit ups. 30 consecutive daily limits up. The entire stock market went wild. Countless people were filled with regret, hating themselves for not seizing this skyrocketing opportunity. As for me, at the peak, I quietly sold every single share I held. $100 million in principal, multiplied 30-fold. $3 billion. After taxes and various costs, there sat quietly in my account $280 million in cash. I looked at that number, but my heart was utterly unmoved. Money, to me, is merely a tool that lets me do as I please and plan for the future. And now, it's time to take the next step. I dialed Olivia. Her voice on the other end of the line sounded a little weary. Ethan, Ms. Martinez, would you be interested in switching jobs? Olivia was stunned. What do you mean? Come work with me. I've just started a new investment company called Vision Capital. I need a trustworthy, highly capable CEO. I think you're a perfect fit. On the other end of the line, there was a long silence. I could imagine the look of shock on her face at that moment. Ethan, where did you get so much money to start an investment company? That's none of your business. All you need to tell me is whether you're coming or not. Annual salary, $10 million, plus 5% in stock options. This condition is enough to drive any golden-collar worker crazy. Olivia took a deep breath. I need to think about it. I'll give you 3 days. In 3 days, if you don't come, I'll go find someone else. I hung up the phone. I believe she will come, because what I offered is not just money. It's also a platform where she can showcase her talent without being restrained by anyone. And I needed her. I needed her expertise, her composure, and her knowledge of the Taylor family. The show was about to begin. I needed an audience most familiar with the stage, sitting in the front row. Olivia finally came after all. She took only 1 day to finish the resignation formalities and cleanly extricated herself from Taylor Group. I wasn't the least bit surprised when I saw her dragging a suitcase appearing under my company building. You came to terms with it that quickly? I asked her with a smile. Olivia took off her sunglasses, revealing a pair of clear eyes edged with a trace of weariness. I haven't been unable to figure anything out. We differ in principles. We won't conspire together. She looked at me, her expression complicated. Ethan, how much money do you actually have right now? This was the question she wanted to know most. A man who walked away from a divorce with nothing had, in just 2 months, not only invested in a promising internet company, but also founded an investment firm with a registered capital of over $100 million. All of this felt like a mystery. That's enough for us to buy half of Taylor Group, I said half-jokingly. Olivia's pupils contracted slightly. She knew I wasn't joking. Come with me, Ms. Martinez. I took her to tour the offices of Vision Capital. They were on the floor above, Weishuan, occupying the entire level as well. The decor was minimalist and modern, everywhere exuding 2 words, wealthy. Olivia looked at everything before her, utterly overwhelmed by the shock in her heart. She thought she had already overestimated Ethan, but now it seemed she had still severely underestimated him. Your target is the Taylor Group? She asked tentatively. I shook my head. No, the Taylor Group is only a stepping stone for me. My goal is the stars and the sea. Olivia stared at the light flashing in my eyes and was momentarily stunned. She realized that the man before her was completely different from the gentle, restrained, even somewhat timid Ethan she remembered. He had become confident, strong, and possessed a charisma of total control. That charisma made her feel a trace of unfamiliarity and also a trace of a flutter in her heart. All right, no more small talk. I handed her a file. These are the company's current investment projects. Get familiar with them first. Starting today, you are the CEO of Vision Capital. I have only one request. Spread our reputation as fast as possible. Olivia took the file, breathed in deeply, and nodded. I understand. She was a clever and competitive woman. If I gave her a stage, she would surely repay me with the most spectacular performance. It was on Olivia's second day at work. Sophia's project, Fooglight, ran into trouble. A tower crane at the construction site suddenly collapsed while in operation, injuring 7 or 8 workers, 2 of them seriously. Although the Taylor family used their connections to suppress the matter, and it didn't cause much of a stir in the media. The project, however, was forced to stop all work and submit to a safety investigation. I received the news while I was in a meeting with Marcus. Ethan, you're amazing. Marcus looked at me with admiration. How did you know there would be an accident at their construction site? I smiled, without explaining. I knew that, of course, because in the previous life, the same accident had happened. Only that last time it occurred when the project was nearly finished, causing even greater losses and directly triggering the collapse of Taylor Group's funding chain. But this time, with my help, the accident happened earlier. Sophia called me. Olivia walked into the conference room, her face grave. She's nearly beside herself. The project is halted. The daily losses are astronomical. The most critical thing is that the contract with the investors includes a performance clause that requires the project to open within 6 months. Otherwise, they must pay triple the penalty. Now that the schedule is delayed, it's basically impossible to finish. Marcus clicked his tongue in surprise. Triple liquidated damages? How much would that be? Their total investment is $1 billion, of which $500 million is a bank loan, $300 million is Taylor Group's own funds, and $200 million comes from an overseas private equity fund, Olivia explained. The profit guarantee agreement was signed with that fund. If they breach the contract, they have to pay $600 million in compensation. $600 million. Enough to drag the whole Taylor Group down. She came to you to ask for your help? I asked. Olivia nodded. She wants me to step in, help arrange a meeting with you, and talk to her. She thinks you've been the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. If you stop, everything can be resolved. I sneered. How naive. Even now, she still thought everything was under her control. Tell her she can see me. Have her bring Dylan and come to my company in person. I'd like to hear what they want to talk to me about. Olivia looked at me with some worry. Ethan, don't worry, I know my limits. The next afternoon, Sophia and Dylan appeared downstairs at Vision Capital. Sophia looked terrible, with obvious dark circles under her eyes, but she still wore delicate makeup and an expensive suit, maintaining her last semblance of dignity. Dylan by her side wore a sullen, impatient expression. When he saw me step out of the elevator, Sophia immediately came forward. Ethan. There was a suppressed anger in her voice and an almost imperceptible plea. I ignored her and looked directly at Dylan. Mr. Parker, I've heard of you. Dylan snorted coldly, sizing me up from head to toe, his gaze full of contempt. You're Ethan, a loser who rose through women, divorced, and still has money to start a company? What? Those $50 million still haven't been spent. His tone was full of provocation. I smiled. It seems Mr. Parker harbors quite a grudge against me. It's not surprising. After all, I cut off your money. Dylan's expression changed. What do you mean? Nothing special. I shrugged. Just wanted to remind Mr. Parker that using a woman's money to dress himself up is ultimately an illusion. Foam will burst someday. You. Dylan was struck where it hurt. He flew into a rage and swung a fist at me. Sophia screamed and blocked him. Dylan, don't be impulsive. She turned her head and glared at me with all her might. Ethan, what on earth do you want? Do you have to drive us to death before you'll be satisfied? I watched her scream hoarse appearance and felt nothing but utter irony. Force you to death. Sophia, from beginning to end, it was you who were forcing me. Now that the game can't continue, you want me to come and clean up your mess? Where in the world does such a thing exist? I walked around them and headed straight for the parking lot at the door. Ethan, stop right there. Sophia shouted from behind me. As long as you agree to help and get the project back underway, I can give you money. $10 million. No, $20 million. She thought I was still the kind of man who could be bought with money. I stopped in my tracks and looked back at her. Sophia, have you forgotten? The $50 million you gave me, I haven't really touched it yet. Right now, the thing I lack least is money. After speaking, I opened the car door and climbed into a black Bentley. This car was one I had just bought a few days ago. Under Sophia and Dylan's stunned gazes, I started the engine and drove off in triumph. In the rearview mirror, their figures grew smaller and smaller, like two ridiculous clownish show-offs. Sophia, this is only the beginning. What will truly drive you to despair is still to come. I will make you watch with your own eyes how everything you cherish crumbles before me. The car accident and my public humiliation kept Sophia and Dylan quiet for a while. But they didn't give up. The Taylor family used every connection and paid a huge price to finally get the Fu Wong project through the safety review and resume work. But after all that upheaval, the schedule was already seriously delayed, and finishing within the time specified in the wager agreement was almost impossible. To make up time, they could only send in more workers and work around the clock. This was yet another huge expense. Taylor Group's cash flow had already been stretched to the limit. Meanwhile, I used that time to complete the preliminary setup of Vision Capital. Under Olivia's management, we moved with thunderous speed and invested in a dozen or so highly promising emerging industry projects. From artificial intelligence to biomedicine, from new energy to cultural entertainment. Each project was a chosen one. I carefully selected from the memories of my previous life. The name Vision Capital began to make a mark in the investment circle. Everyone was filled with curiosity about this newly emerged, lavish spending, sharp-eyed upstart. And Wei Xuan surged even further ahead. After burning through nearly $100 million in promotion expenses, our user count successfully surpassed the 30 million mark. Daily active users exceeded 10 million. These figures sent shockwaves throughout the entire internet industry. WeChat Mini had already begun to show signs of becoming the new social media overlord. Marcus's net worth rose accordingly. He became the darling chased by major financial media, hailed as the strongest dark horse of the year. And as his largest investor behind the scenes, I remained as mysterious as ever. That day, I was in the office discussing next quarter's investment plan with Olivia when I received an unexpected call. It was Sophia's father, George Taylor, chairman of the Taylor Group, a man I had called father for 10 years in my previous life. Ethan, got time? Want to grab a meal together? His voice sounded kindly, like an ordinary elder inviting a junior to dinner. But I knew this old fox could no longer sit still. Mr. Taylor, if there's something, just say it. I didn't bother with pleasantries. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Aha, still so direct. George gave a hollow laugh. All right, I'll be straightforward then. Sophia's project has hit a bit of trouble. I was hoping you could do me a favor. A favor. I feigned surprise. Mr. Taylor, you're joking. I'm just the owner of a small company now. How could I possibly help the Taylor Group? Ethan, let's not beat around the bush. George put away his false politeness, his voice growing serious. I know you have the ability. I've heard about the success of Wei Xuan and your moves in the stock market. You're not an ordinary person. Speak. What exactly do you want? If you're willing to show mercy and let the Fu Wong project go, name your price. I smiled. Mr. Taylor, I think you've got the wrong idea. First, the problems with the Fu Wong project are due to your mismanagement, not me. Second, I'm not interested in negotiating with you, because your Taylor family no longer has the qualification to bargain with me. My words made George's breathing grow heavy. Ethan, don't get too arrogant. Do you really think you can fight against our Taylor family? I admit, you're somewhat capable now, but the Taylor family has been deeply rooted in this city for 30 years. The foundation isn't something a nouveau riche like you can imagine. Pushing us too far won't do you any good. That was a threat. The smile at the corner of my mouth grew colder. Is that so? Then we'll wait and see. I hung up the phone immediately. Olivia listened to the whole conversation on the side, a worried look appearing on her face. Ethan, isn't it too risky to provoke him like this? George Taylor is ruthless and cruel. He'll stop at nothing for profit. I'm afraid he'll use some underhanded tricks against you. I shook my head. That's exactly to provoke him. When a person is angry, they're more likely to make mistakes. The more he tries to use dirty tricks, the more flaws he'll reveal. I looked out the window, my gaze deep. And besides, did you think I wasn't prepared? If he wants to play with me, I'll play with him to the end. I want to see whether it's his old tree with deep roots, or my new knife that's sharper. As expected, just as I predicted. A few days later, a flood of negative news about me began appearing online, revealing the mysterious investor behind Wei Xuan. Turns out to be a man who climbed up by living off his ex-wife, abandoning his lawful wife, and colluding with a mistress. The ugly true face of a former Phoenix man. Vision Capital suspected of illegal fundraising. Financial scam surfaces. All kinds of baseless rumors and malicious slanderous posts spread everywhere. In the posts, I was painted as an ungrateful, sponge-eating, serial scumbag who cheated during marriage. And Olivia was slandered as the homewrecker who destroyed someone else's family. The company's phones were ringing off the hook. Partners called one after another to demand explanations. The employees were also on edge. Marcus was as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Ethan, this definitely has to be the Taylor family. Goddamn despicable. We have to clear this up right away. But I was unusually calm. Clear it up? Why clear it up? Don't they love throwing mud? Then let them throw to their heart's content. The dirtier the water, the clearer you can see who is swimming naked. I opened my computer and sent a document I had prepared long ago to a media contact I was familiar with. The title of the document is Regarding Ethan, son-in-law of the Taylor Group, and the 10-year grudge with designer Dylan. A 5,000-word tearful accusation. In the document, I detailed how over the past 10 years I was jointly suppressed by Sophia and Dylan, how I was treated like an ATM, and finally how I was forced to leave with nothing. It contains a large amount of evidence, including the chat logs of Sophia asking me for money, the bank statements showing I repaid Dylan's gambling debts, and the photos of Dylan carousing and keeping a mistress. Each one alone is enough to ruin Sophia and Dylan. George Taylor, don't you like fighting public opinion wars? Then I'll play a big one with you. I want to see in the end who will die looking worse. My counterattack detonated on the internet like an atomic bomb. If the dirt the Taylor family threw before only stirred up a ripple, then the blood and tears denunciation I hurled unleashed a towering tidal wave. Public opinion instantly flipped. The netizens who had been calling me a scumbag and a Phoenix man all switched sides after seeing the evidence I posted. Holy shit, this twist, the drama of the year. So Ethan was the victim all along, gaslit for 10 years by his wife and her white moonlight. Feeling sorry for Ethan. What an utterly tragic sap. That Dylan is a top-tier scumbag, right? Living off a woman, gambling, keeping a mistress. Was Sophia blind? Sophia isn't any good either, typical love brain. She ruined such a good husband for a scumbag. Serve her right. Online, the written and verbal attacks against Sophia and Dylan were overwhelming. Under the official Weibo of the Floating Light Project, angry netizens swarmed and tore it apart. The stock price of Taylor Group plummeted in response. Within a single day, over $1 billion, actually several billion, vanished. George was so furious, he smashed everything he could find in his office. He never expected that I held so much damning evidence in my hands. What I didn't expect was that my counterattack would be so fierce and resolute. He tried to crush me with public opinion, but instead, he was struck by my counterblow and left utterly helpless. Sophia completely collapsed. She locked herself in her room, neither eating nor drinking, and turned off her phone. She couldn't accept that the love she had treasured and taken pride in was, in the eyes of the world, such a shameful joke. She was even less able to accept that the man she had once discarded like an old shoe had now become the object of everyone's sympathy and praise. And Dylan simply vanished. At the first sign of the scandal, he took the last of the liquid funds in the project's account and ran. Left behind a huge mess. The bank came knocking to collect debts. The partner came calling to demand payment for the project. Workers owed wages blocked the Taylor Group's gate and raised banners. Troubles at home and abroad. The once dazzling Taylor Group, overnight, became tottering. George went white-haired overnight. He finally realized what a terrifying opponent he had provoked. He called me again. This time, his voice no longer had the previous arrogance and hardness. Only endless exhaustion and fear. Ethan, I give up. Name your price. As long as you spare the Taylor family, I'll agree to any condition. I listened to his weak voice, but there wasn't a ripple in my heart. Mr. Taylor, don't you think it's a bit late to concede now? I've long said you no longer have the right to negotiate terms with me. Ethan, do you have to finish her off completely? George hissed. Sophia is barely holding on. She locked herself in her room and hasn't eaten for 2 days. Even if you hate me, hate the Taylor family, she is still your wife. Can you really watch her die like this? He started playing the sympathy card. Ridiculous. In my last life, I gave up my life to save her. And what did I get in return? What followed was her and Dylan embracing each other on the road to the underworld. This time, I won't make the same mistakes again. That's your business. It has nothing to do with me. I said coldly. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you one thing. The overseas private equity fund that signed the bet agreement with you back then, its actual controlling shareholder is me. My words, like the final straw, completely broke George. On the other end of the phone came his heavy breathing and the sound of a glass shattering. He couldn't utter a single word. I can imagine the look of despair on his face right now. He thought he was fighting jackals and tigers. He never expected that from the very beginning he had fallen into a trap carefully laid by the hunter. $600 million in breach damages. Transfer it to the account I specify within 3 days. Otherwise, see you in court. When that time comes, Taylor Group will be facing more than just bankruptcy liquidation. I hung up the phone and threw it onto the table. Outside the window, the sun was bright. Everything was over. Olivia stood behind me, silently watching. You had it all planned from the very beginning? She asked softly. I nodded. From the moment I decided to divorce Sophia, this scheme had already been laid out. Every step was part of my calculation. Aren't you afraid of things going too far? Yes. I looked at her and said seriously, that's why I need an assistant who is smart enough and calm enough. For example, you. Olivia's face flushed slightly as she averted her eyes from me. Sophia, is she really going to get into trouble? She was still a little worried. I shook my head. No, someone like her cherishes her life more than anyone. Right now, she just can't accept reality. When she comes to terms with it, she'll come out on her own. Only, by then, she would have nothing left. This was the last gift I gave her. A gift called regret for her to savor with the rest of her life. 3 days later, $600 million arrived in my account on time. The Taylor family sold off a large amount of fixed assets and even mortgaged all the shares under George's name to raise the money. The once dominant Taylor Group is now nothing but an empty shell. As for me, I became the biggest winner in this battle of capital. Nearly $4 billion in cash are sitting in Vision Capital's account. This sum is enough to let me stride through this city with impunity. Olivia stared at the string of zeros on the financial statement, feeling like she was dreaming. Are we considered top-tier wealthy now? She murmured. I smiled. Not yet. This amount of money is negligible in front of the real capital tycoons. My gaze was no longer confined to this city. What I wanted was the whole world. That day, I received a call from Marcus. Ethan, I've got good news for you. The user base of Weishuan has already surpassed 100 million. Now, we're the largest mobile social platform abroad. The investment firms that used to look down on us are now lining up to see me, but they can't even get through the door. Ha ha ha. Marcus laughed on the other end of the line like a 300-pound child. Don't get happy too soon. I doused him with a bucket of cold water. The real opponent is coming. Who? The Penguin Group. In a last life, it was precisely when Wei Sun users exceeded 100 million that the Penguin Group felt threatened and launched their ace product, an overseas social app. A bitterly fierce social war was about to begin. In his previous life, Marcus ultimately won, but he paid a terrible price. This time, with me here, I won't let history repeat itself. They're coming. Marcus's voice instantly grew tense. It should be soon. What do we do then? Don't be afraid. I comforted him. Meet force with force, meet water with earth. They have traffic. We have the first mover advantage. Besides, we have a secret weapon. I had Marcus start development on version 3.0 of Weishuan immediately. In the new version, I added 2 epic-making features. One was Scan, the other was Weishuan Pay. These 2 features will completely change users' payment habits and will build an impregnable moat around Weixing. Once the payment ecosystem is established, Weixin will stand invincible. Just as we were rushing to develop the new version, I received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the line was a weak, hoarse female voice. Ethan, it was Sophia. I remained silent, saying nothing. Can we meet? She asked tentatively, her voice carrying a hint of pleading. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry in person. I had originally planned to refuse outright. But after thinking it over, I agreed. Some things need to be brought to an end. We arranged to meet at a cafe. When I arrived, Sophia was already there. She was sitting by the window, wearing a simple white dress, without makeup. Her face was pale, and she had grown noticeably thin. The once radiant and aloof Miss Taylor now looked like a withered flower. When she saw me, she stood up awkwardly, her hands nervously twisting together. You're here. I nodded and sat down opposite her. Speak. What do you want from me? My indifference made her eyes redden, tears welling up in her eyes. Ethan, I'm sorry. She lowered her head, her voice choked. It was all my fault before. It was I who was blinded by lard and didn't cherish you. I took your kindness for granted. If I could go back, I would definitely. No ifs. I cut her off. Sophia, I didn't come today to hear you apologize. Our relationship ended long ago. You go your narrow bridge. I'll take my sunny path. From now on, don't have any more intersections. My words were like a knife, cutting off the last thread of illusion in her heart. Her tears finally couldn't be held back and flowed down. But I truly know I was wrong. I sold the house and the car and paid off the bank loan. My dad, he had a stroke. He's still in the hospital. The Taylor family is finished. She cried with pear-blossom tears, fragile and pitiful. Any man who saw her would feel a pang of pity. Except me, because in the last life, I had already paid the price of my life for her tears. So, I looked at her, expressionless. Do you want me to pity you? Or do you want me to help you? Sophia was choked by my words. She lifted her head and looked at me with tear-filled eyes. I just wanted to tell you, Dylan. He was arrested. He was gambling in Macau, accumulated over $100 million in gambling debts, had his leg broken, and was thrown back to the mainland. He confessed to everything, including how he step-by-step schemed to win my trust and take my money. There was not a ripple in my heart. Dylan's fate had long been within my expectations. So what? That was what he deserved. What does that have to do with me? Sophia looked at me with cold eyes, her body trembling slightly. She finally understood. This man before her no longer had any place in his heart for her. His heart had become harder than stone. Ethan, she made her final struggle. Can we really never go back? I'll change. I'll do anything for you, as long as you're willing to give me one more chance. I looked at her and suddenly smiled. I took an invitation out of my pocket, placed it on the table, and pushed it in front of her. It was a bright red wedding invitation. On it were 2 names stamped in gold, Ethan and Olivia. Sophia's gaze fell on the invitation. her pupils suddenly constricting. Her face, in an instant, drained of all color. You all. Sophia's voice trembled. She pointed at that glaring red invitation and couldn't finish a single sentence. "You're going to marry Olivia?" Her voice was filled with an absurd disbelief and the rage of betrayal. "Wasn't she my best friend? How could you do this?" I looked at her on the verge of collapse and felt nothing but irony. "Best friend, Sophia, did you really consider her a friend? When you repeatedly ignored and used her for Dylan, were you treating her like a friend? When you pushed me into a dead end and only she was willing to speak up for me, and then you drove her out of the company, were you treating her like a friend?" Each of my retorts landed like a resounding slap, striking her face hard. Sophia's complexion went from pale to ashen, her lips trembling, yet she couldn't retort a single word. We were together because we admired each other and supported one another. And you, Sophia, you've only ever loved yourself. You don't love Dylan, nor do you love me. What you love is the vanity of being chased by two men, the feeling of being the center of attention. Now, the game is over. You should wake up. I stood up and looked down at her. The invitation has been delivered. I've said my piece. From now on, don't come looking for me, and don't go looking for Olivia either. Live your own life well. Having said that, I turned and walked away, not glancing back at her once. Behind me, her suppressed, despairing sobs came through. Those cries were sharp and piercing, but I knew they had nothing to do with me anymore. Olivia and I had our wedding 1 month later. The ceremony was simple. We only invited a few close friends and business partners. Marcus, my best man, got completely drunk at the wedding, held me, crying and laughing. "Ethan, you finally reaped what you sowed. If you ever betray Olivia again, I'll be the first one to make you pay." Olivia wore a pristine white wedding dress and stood by my side, smiling gently and serenely. She looked at me, her eyes full of love and trust. "Husband, please take care of me from now on." I squeezed her hand and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Wife, please take care of me for the rest of my life." After the wedding, we didn't go on a honeymoon, because the Penguin Group's overseas social app officially launched. A war sweeping the entire internet industry had officially begun. Riding on their powerful traffic gateway, they gained nearly 20 million users in just 1 month. They came on strong. Inside Weishuan, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone felt immense pressure. Only I remained steady, sitting on the fishing terrace. I had Olivia mobilize all of Vision Capital's resources to start building momentum in the media. The focus of the campaign wasn't socializing, but payments. WeChat Pay, ushering in the cashless era. 1-cent flash sales, millions in red envelopes up for grabs. We used the simplest, most brutal money-burning methods to quickly plant the concept of WeChat Pay into the mind of every user. At the same time, I had Marcus's tech team complete the rollout of offline payment scenarios as quickly as possible, from shopping malls and supermarkets to small restaurants. Overnight, every street and alley was plastered with Weishuan Pay QR codes, while Penguin Group was still imitating our moments and agonizing over social features. We had quietly completed the construction of the payment closed loop. The outcome of the war at that moment was actually already decided. 1 year later, Weishuan surpassed 500 million users, becoming an indisputable national-level app. Weishuan Pay occupied 70% of the mobile payment market. The company's market value exceeded $100 billion. And Vision Capital, thanks to a series of precise investments, became one of the top investment firms abroad. Olivia's and my names climbed to the top of the Forbes Rich list. This day was the opening of Vision Capital's new headquarters. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows on the top floor, overlooking the city I had put beneath my feet. Olivia slipped her arms around me from behind. "What are you thinking about?" "Thinking about what it would be like now if in my last life I hadn't died in that river." Olivia pressed her face against my back and said softly, "There is no if. Even if there is, that would only be a story from another parallel universe. In this universe, you are mine, and I am yours. I smiled, turned around, and held her in my arms. In the distance, the sun set in the west, dyeing the entire city a wash of gold. I vaguely saw, in the plaza of the new headquarters, a familiar and downcast figure staring blankly at the building. It was Sophia. She looked more haggard than the last time we met. She seemed to have noticed me too. She raised her hand, as if wanting to say something, but I no longer cared. I lowered my head and kissed Olivia's lips. The wind blew in from the window, carrying a hint of chill. "It's getting cold," I said softly. "Let's go home."